The crystal clink of champagne glasses was a soundtrack to my isolation. I stood near the towering wedding cake, a solitary figure in a sea of coupled bliss, holding my flute like a shield. This wasn't even my sister Brooke's wedding. It was her vow renewal, a lavish 5-year anniversary spectacle designed to reiterate her narrative of perfect, attainable happiness. I, Emma, at 29, have built a life I love as a university librarian, a world of quiet scholarship and profound peace. To my family, this isn't success, it's a waiting room. My sister Brooke, at 32, is the protagonist of their story. Married to Tyler, mother of 2, curator of a flawless suburban dream. I have always been the footnote, the contrast used to highlight her brilliance. The cruelty, when it came, was a public execution. Brooke swept toward me with her bridesmaids, a queen holding court. Her voice, sweetly venomous, carried perfectly. "Still no ring, Emma, no man. Must be so hard watching everyone else move on with their actual lives." The sycophantic tittering from her friends felt like shards of glass. All nearby conversations ceased. Every gaze swiveled to me, a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. My face ignited with a familiar, humiliating heat. I was paralyzed, a specimen under their microscope. Then, from behind me, a voice, calm, assured, and unmistakable, cut the silence like a scalpel. "Actually, she's here with me." The path to this precipice was paved with a lifetime of quiet barbs. The gilded invitation had included a +1, but my mother's follow-up call was a foregone conclusion. "Should we mark you down as solo again, sweetheart?" She'd sighed, the disappointment a tangible entity over the line. I'd affirmed I was coming alone. I did not tell her about James. For 8 months, I had been in a relationship with Dr. James Reed, a man I'd met after a lecture on medical ethics. He was a cardiac surgeon, a man whose brilliance was matched only by his profound humility. He'd pioneered a revolutionary surgical technique and shunned the spotlight, finding his fulfillment in the silent, life-saving precision of the operating room. Our relationship was my sanctuary, a private universe I fiercely protected from my family's corrosive scrutiny. Their past intrusions had turned previous boyfriends into case studies, interrogated about salaries, life plans, and their willingness to fix my seemingly unimpressive life. At the venue, my isolation was immediately reinforced. My mother's greeting was a pitying embrace. "We put you at the table with your grandmother and the great-aunts, dear. You'll have more in common." My father's contribution was a weary headshake. "Brooke's renewing her vows, Emma, a celebration of commitment. Try to look happy, even if you don't understand it." I absorbed the blows in silence. Brooke's ceremony was visually stunning. Her speech, however, was a masterclass in passive aggression. Gazing out at the crowd, she spoke of the sacred choice of real partnership, her eyes deliberately finding and holding mine, as she added, "Some people chase independence, but those of us who choose commitments are truly blessed." The approving murmur from the guests felt like a collective dismissal. The confrontation at the cake table was the final, unignorable salvo. Flushed with wine and adoration, Brooke zeroed in, her voice loud and performative. "I just worry about you, Emma, all alone with your books. Don't you get lonely? Don't you want what everyone here has?" I opened my mouth, a feeble defense forming, but the words were choked by the weight of their judgment. That's when he intervened. James stepped smoothly into the circle, his presence an immediate calming force. His hand settled on my shoulder, warm and steadying. "Dr. James Reed," he said, extending his other hand to my stunned sister, Emma's partner. Brooke's triumphant smirk evaporated into confusion. Partner? Emma never mentioned a partner. I found a sliver of strength. "I was under the impression this was a celebration of your marriage, Brooke, not an inquest into my personal life." James remained the picture of polite composure. "My sincerest apologies for my tardiness. A patient needed me." The word patient sent a ripple through the bridesmaids. "You're a doctor?" one blurted. "A cardiac surgeon, yes," James replied. My parents appeared as if conjured, their expressions morphing from detached pity to sharp interest. "Emma, why didn't you tell us?" my mother gasped. I held her gaze. You never asked. You only ever told me what I was lacking. Suspicion, desperate and ugly, flashed in Brooke's eyes. She yanked me aside, her whisper a furious hiss. You pathetic fraud. How much did he cost? Then, for the audience, she issued a challenge. Prove it. If this is real, prove it. James simply looked at me, his gaze full of unwavering support. Your move, he murmured. I took a deep breath, centering breath, and nodded. James pulled out his phone, displaying a series of photos. Us at a university gala where he'd been a guest of honor, a candid shot from a weekend hike, simple screenshot of our text chain filled with inside jokes and dinner plans. Brooke's face went ashen, but her wounded pride demanded a last stand. Anyone can stage photos, she sneered, though her voice had lost her conviction. It was then that Tyler's best man, Nathan, stepped forward, his jaw slack. Wait, James Reed? The Dr. Reed? He turned to the assembled crowd, his voice ringing with genuine awe. This is the man who developed the Reed minimally invasive valve procedure. He won the National Medical Innovation Award. I studied his papers in residency. Sir, it's an honor. The silence that descended was profound and transformative. The energy in the room inverted. The man I had been pitied for not having was in his own realm a figure of towering respect and accomplishment, a realm my family suddenly desperately wished to enter. Brooke's facade crumbled completely. Emma, why would you hide this? She implored, her voice now a wounded whisper. This time, my voice did not tremble. It was clear, calm, and carried to every ear. Because every person I've ever cared for you have dissected. You've questioned their worth, their potential, their ability to give me the life you deem appropriate. You turned my happiness into a committee decision. I protected James from that. I protected us from your need to control and criticize. I turned to my parents. For my entire life, you have measured me against Brooke and found me wanting. My career is a hobby. My contentment is stagnation. Tonight, Brooke publicly shames me for not living her life. That ends now. James, standing firm beside me, added the final undeniable truth. I was walking in when you declared Emma had no future. I heard the malice, not the concern. My brother-in-law, Tyler, finally spoke, his voice heavy with shame. You are wrong, Brooke. That was cruel. The victory in Brooke's eyes had been replaced by a hollow shock. The guests' whispers were no longer about the lonely librarian. They were about the sister's stunning cruelty and the spectacular miscalculation she had made. James and I left not long after. The cool night air was the sweetest freedom. You were magnificent, he said, his pride a tangible warmth around me. I just finally stopped editing my reality for their comfort, I replied, feeling a decade of tension dissolve. My phone soon lit up with a cascade of texts. Awkward apologies from my mother, defensive justifications from Brooke. I placed it face down. That night belonged to me, to us. We found a late-night diner, a world away from the chandeliers and judgment. Over terrible coffee and shared pie, we talked and laughed, the sound genuine and unfettered. The next morning, a text from James lit up my screen. Pancakes or waffles? I'm cooking. A simple, joyful question. For the first time in memory, I felt the lightness unburdened by the need for familial approval. Their validation was a currency I bankrupted myself chasing. In that moment of truth, backed by a quiet, formidable love I had chosen to shield from my family, I realized my worth was never theirs to assign. The woman with the quiet job and the guarded heart had a love story of depth and respect, and she hadn't needed a ring on her finger to live it.